And we both have a lot of shared vision on customer experience, on, hey, this is a neighborhood bar first, therefore we don't do X or Y, even though there's other cocktail bars doing that. So then if it's real estate related, lease related, dealing with this landlord, dealing with this investment document, I don't think Kevin gets okay, if that's going to work, whatever, so that division of labors also helps a partnership, because I think if we both wanted to do the same thing all the time and also both had very strong feelings about everything, I think that would be hard on any two people.
Right. This episode is brought to you by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guests, owners of Dram and Draught and creators of Kolatka. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
Awesome. Kevin, Barrett, and Drew Schenk, a.k.a. the Barman. Are you two feeling unstoppable today?
Unstoppable.
Yeah.
I feel like an unstoppable dynamo.
I'm feeling unstoppable. After just doing a little bit of research, you guys both have very extensive careers. And what you've done in the past year and a half is crazy. You've scaled from one location to what now? Almost 7?
From 2 to 7.
2 to 7. But the second one was 10 years after, 2018?
2016 was Dram and Draught Raleigh, and then 2018 was Dram and Draught Greensboro.
That's right.
And then there was something big that happened in 2020 that I can't remember that slowed us down for a minute.
It's better that you forgot about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I do want to make sure we acknowledge Dave Nitzel and Dave Domzalski for calling Kevin and Drew out, because we do try to find our future guests through our current guests, referrals and stuff like that. I also want to say thank you to John Sealbinder for letting us use the Merchant to record these interviews. If you guys are ready, I'm ready. Let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
Drew, what's yours?
I thought about it just because I said, and by mantra, I mean, what do you say to yourself and what do you say to other people that kind of says it?
Yeah, it could be like a core value in your business, a saying that echoes throughout your walls that's near to your culture, or just a quote.
For me, I have a couple little tiny ones like activity breeds productivity. And I say it to myself a lot, and then I'll say it to somebody else when they're like, well, I'm going to do this. I don't know if it's going to work, or I'm going to try this. Activity breeds productivity, and productivity breeds success. So it's kind of like just to get going and do it.
Activity breeds productivity. And what was the second half of that?
Productivity breeds success.
I love it.
Because success doesn't just drop in your lap. You actually have to get out there and make stuff happen, because it'll happen to somebody else that's trying to make it happen if you don't get on top of it.
Yes. Kevin, did you want to add to that?
I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I know I've said this so many times that people are saying it back to me now. My kind of throughout the business, my mantra is it's not the general with the biggest army that wins, it's the general with the most options. So that's kind of like when we're making choices, or people are making choices, independent of Drew and I, when we're not around to make the choices, that's kind of the guiding light, Give us the choice that allows us options.
So is it giving your team the freedom to make choices?
Absolutely.
Is that the message?
Yeah, I think with yes, and the overarching kind of theme to making those choices. Don't box yourself in. You have the ability to make the choice, but make the choice that leaves some options. And I think a lot of that comes post-COVID, where we didn't have a lot of choices.
Right.
Coming out of that, options are very valuable.
Right. Great way to get this thing started. We do have a lot to cover. You guys both have lifetime careers. Well, you took a break for real estate at one point, right?
Just a small. How did you know that?
I did a little bit of research. A little bit of. I give myself an hour for every interview just to get a timeline. But that's all I get. Sometimes I don't even get an hour. Who wants to go first? Drew, do you want to go first?
I want to add one mantra for Kevin that he has said, which is more to the business, because mine was more of a personal one that he said a long time ago, and it's actually become kind of a go to that when you make a decision. We're a neighborhood bar first. So in our industry, there was a lot of things happening within the cocktail culture, and Kevin was when we started this, he was like, but we've got to be a neighborhood bar first.
Yeah,
We take
things
care of
got
our
a little
guests.
pretentious.
Yeah, and we want to take care of the guests as if they're going to be regulars. And if
Right.
they're from out of town, fine. You just experienced our neighborhood bar.
Right.
You know.
And the last thing you want to do is make people feel uncomfortable in your space or less than. You're there to celebrate them, to lift them up, to make sure they leave feeling good. And if they
That's right.
And if they feel stupid when they leave because they're like, oh, I didn't even know the names of these drinks, or you made me look bad in front of my friends because I don't drink these fancy drinks. Like, it's educational, right?
That's right.
And you're
That's
there
right.
to say yes to the guests.
Yes.
You're not there to say no to them, although sometimes we have to. The job is to say yes.
Yeah. So, Drew, take us back. Where does it make sense to start sharing your story? We're going to do a fast forward version.
Let's do it real fast. Reader's Digest version even. So I started in the restaurant industry early at 12, breaking down boxes in a meat market outside Philadelphia. Moved to West Virginia, did in the 14 to 16 that whole McDonald's, Charlie Daniel's Tacos, worked a couple restaurant jobs, and then stopped, became a river guy, joined the Guard, went to OCS, got my commission, and thought I was going to come down here and just hit it big because there was cranes all over the place, and I'm coming
There's
from
even
West
more
Virginia.
now.
I know. I thought it was growing then. This would have been 89, and got married, and went to work for Applebees, and it's a local, the Olanders owned, I think it was Kin Restaurants, which had a whole bunch of Burger Kings, and then they had more, MOR, which had a whole bunch of Applebees. And that was a great experience because in that, corporate, here's your training manual, here's the way we do it. We actually were in a training store, and there was a guy named Frank McNally that was in charge of the training store. He's actually the one that got me to interview with Applebee's.
What year is this?
This would have been right there at 90.
90, because I saw you were with Remington Grill in 93.
That's right. That was my first restaurant. So
Partner, right?
I owned it.
Oh, you owned
it
it.
was me. Yeah, it was me. The other, just like with the other owners, the other were minority investors.
Where was Applebee's in 1990? How many, where were they in their growth? Because that's early for them, isn't it?
There was, yes, I guess there was only like 5 or 6 in the state, but it went while they were opening. They were a machine. They were opening them. And I don't know. I think they may have bought Apple South. They may own even more now, or maybe they sold Apple South. I don't know. But Michael Olander Jr. is still in our market, investing in restaurants and doing real estate restaurant deals and all that. So it's kind of neat to see we all kind of, and there's other bar owners in town that were once with Applebee's.
Right.
And that's fun.
These organizations that are like the big, I don't know, the ones that kind of get the bad names today as far as being too big or whatever. I don't know where you fall politically, but most of these giant companies really started off as amazing, small, intimate, really well-run organizations. So where was Applebee's then as far as a culture and a business?
It was very corporate, which again, I was only there about a year. Well, 5 locations, but no, they had hundreds. It was 5 in this market.
I don't know the story behind Applebee's. Were they around for a while in the 90s?
Burger King guys out of Atlanta.
Okay.
And they went into it knowing this is a big corporation. So it is not one of your examples of a mom and pop that got. No, this was a big corporate guys starting a big corporate neighborhood bar concept, which again.
So they're already greased up, ready to go, knowing exactly what they had to do, and just brought those.
And they already had a
in.
built-in guys like the Olanders that owned multiple Burger Kings that knew how to be franchisees, because being a franchisee is not necessarily easy either. No. And they already knew that. So it was great. But I was only there a year and a half, and I met a guy, Chris Mobley, and he and I started a restaurant equipment company, and we were so young and so dumb, and we got business cards made, Capital Food Equipment, Inc., and we weren't even incorporated. We didn't know anything. And we started picking up lines and selling stuff, and we did very well, and I opened Remington Grill, my first restaurant, April 1992.
Was it the goal to go work for a corporation and to learn to go open your first place? Was that was there strategy behind this?
I would love to say I was that smart. No, it was a goal to get $395 a week, and it was like, wow, I'm making $19,000 a year. I have hit it. I have arrived in Raleigh.
Man, things have changed since the early 90s, huh? So what were was this a pivotal point for you in your career? Would you say you grew as a professional, quote unquote, during this time?
The pivotal thing, the tipping point for me was we did the restaurant equipment company, and we were the first to, because we weren't draftsmen, we were the first to use CAD. And we had hired actually an Applebee's server that was in engineering school at NC State, and he did our CADs, and the health department loved it. And the lady at the time was Peggy Montalbano, and she handed my business card out to everybody that was coming to town to open a restaurant. And we, back then we sold like 800,000 our first full year in business in restaurant equipment. It was unheard of. We took the market by storm. I was designing restaurants, wasn't really qualified to, but I learned a lot, and I designed probably all the really good ones that came, Margot's, all these big ones, Newton Southwest, all these restaurants that were coming to town. I designed them and sold them the equipment. And that was the tipping point financially to be, you're making $19,000 a year. Now you're going to go open a restaurant as a side project, which, by the way, I don't recommend.
Right.
That
was my dad's plan when he opened a restaurant. He was a correctional officer in Boston, running a jail. And he's like, I'm going to open a restaurant on the side, work the night shift, come home, open at 6 a.m., breakfast and lunch, and go sleep for 6 hours. Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize that until I interviewed him recently. I had them be episode 1000. For reference, you're 1011. But I wanted to share the origin story, but I didn't even know that. But I agree, that's not good.
Not a smart business
You need to
plan.
find some balance for sure.
Yeah.
So where would you say you evolved the most? Was it in Remington's, owning your first place and kind of really pushing the envelope?
You start learning a lot. I was 26 at that point, and owned a restaurant. I'm in there in sandals and shorts and a Remington Grill T-shirt every day, working the grill, and at the same time managing people. Many times they're older than I am and more experienced than I am. So you just start learning. You learn to deal with landlords and all that. And that was trial by fire learning. And that helped, and a lot of those lessons are still with me. And that restaurant, to my pride, is still open.
Wow!
It's 30 years later,
So
and it's still
it.
open. I sold it in '96, and the guys that bought it, still have it.
And you went from Remington's to real estate for a short period. Was it how many years were you doing the real estate?
So I did real estate for just about 10 years. I sold Remington Grill, and I was then wealthy. I'm rolling my eyes. You can't, because anyway, it's not how it works out. I got a couple $100,000 when I was 28. That sounds like a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I was going to go sell real estate. I realized the IRS wanted part of that money, and money is not what it looks like. Anyway, long story short, went into real estate, did fairly well until 2008, and then got wiped out. So I was everything I'd ever made was gone. And I said, well, baby, we're going back in the restaurant business. And my wife did not want me to, because she knows how hard I work in the restaurant business. And I said, well, okay, then we're going to have to sell the house. And she goes, go back in the restaurant business, get your ass to work. So I did Raleigh Point Sport Grill in Cary, which is still open. And when Kevin and I did the second Dram, I sold it to work full time with Kevin. And that's the rest is probably more history. So that's
when you guys start to intersect. So before we transition over to Kevin, I'm curious, where would you say you evolved the most, or take us to maybe Remington's where you just fell hard on your face, one lesson that if you knew now after your success with the Dram and all the other concepts that you've worked with.
That it all starts with the lease and the lease negotiation. And even with Remington Grill, I designed the menu to go in a 1,500 square foot space. And I don't know if you remember Trax record stores, but then they wanted that whole end of the building. So they moved me out into a 4,200 square foot space, and I allowed the landlord to do that. It actually all worked out. Like I say, the place still open, but I'm doing $3.95 burgers. And that includes your fries, fresh cut fries, which at the time was everybody was doing, and your burger was cooked to order, and it was this kind of really it was meant to be much smaller. And here I am paying $8,000 a month rent in 1992,
wow,
and it was more money than I was making, by far. And so it was. I've learned, you don't let the landlords push you around. When you get a good enough reputation, it's nice because you can go in and say, this is fair, and let's do this because it's fair, and this is, and then, because if you don't set that up right, if the lease isn't right, if it's too short, a lot of people want a 5-year lease. We only do 10 and 10, so that we have 20 years in front of us.
Yeah.
We don't, we might not get rolling for a couple of years.
How do you have any clue as to what is fair when you're first getting started? That, I feel like that is for a new restaurateur, that is such a strange subject. What is a good deal when it comes to rent?
Well, you've got the base rent, you know what they're trying to get. They've got to make money on their building. I mean, you don't want to be in a place that isn't making money, but then you've got to convince them they don't want tenants in there that aren't making money. So let's get this where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And luckily we're now at the point, and we're not doing any more that we know of right this minute. But now we have people coming to us. So it's a different negotiation when they say, can we fly you into town? We're going to put you up, take you to dinner. We want to look at this project. And that's a different conversation than calling the sign out front and getting a real estate agent. We don't even deal with the real estate agents. We deal with the developer themselves.
Got it. And I thought, seeing that you had that real estate experience, I was like, that's smart in the restaurant industry. Just understanding real estate and that whole industry in itself, I think gives you such a leg up, because your rent, whatever your land, like whether you're renting or buying, like just understanding that market and what a good deal is can make or break you.
It helped us. I mean, I won't lie. With our first Dram, the whole reason we got the deal and everybody wanted a deal there was because we were able to structure the real estate end of it in a way that the owner of the property was willing to do it. And that's what got us going, because we couldn't have gotten that location. It sat empty for 7 years, and we structured a deal that worked for us and for him. And that's how we were able to do that location.
Got it.
It was the real estate.
All right, Kevin, it's your turn, and thank you, Drew, for giving us an idea of what was going on before you guys linked up. So I know you started in Philadelphia, found yourself in Wilmington, and then you found yourself in Raleigh, but you've been working in hospitality since, I think I saw 13 years old.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So I was like, I'm not going to lie. When I first sat down, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to unpackage these two dudes and their careers in a short period of time, but Drew did it surprisingly well. No pressure.
All right. Well, mine's a bit shorter than Drew's. A number of decades ago, I was born a barman. I'm a barman today. End of story.
But you had some growth in there, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's funny that you know the 13-year-old story.
It's amazing what Google can tell you.
Yeah. No, I'm getting a little worried about what else is out there about me. I started as a dishwasher when I was 13, and I remember at the end of the night getting paid $30 or $40, $5 an hour under the table.
Yeah.
And being dirty and worn out at the end of the night and thinking, yeah, this is the life for me. So I went up from there, a little bit of back of the house, but mostly moved to front of the house because I think I just saw more opportunity there. I was a busboy, then a server, then a bartender. And once I was a bartender, I was like, this is where
When did that happen for you?
Probably happened somewhere between 18 and 21 was the transition. And it was a long transition because I moved around a lot when I was younger. There's a couple
family?
spots. No, from like 17 to probably 28, I moved a lot. So for school, right, I went out to Western Washington for college. And every time you move to a new city and you want a bartending job, you have to prove yourself or someone has to die. And, people are entrenched in these jobs and you're nobody. And I kept going from, a city that I'd been at for a year or a couple of years or a few years to a new city saying, hey, I'm a bartender. I used to be somebody, right?
Yeah.
In my town.
No, believe me.
People know me in the town that
I've
come
had stories
from,
where people are like, I just convinced them that I knew what I was doing. I sold myself really well, but I had no clue. But that wasn't you.
No, but I trust me, I would oversell myself as much as I had to get a job. I remember, I'm skipping ahead a bit, but I think in high school, a brief break from the service industry, I opened a lawn mowing and landscaping company with a friend of mine when we were 17.
In high school?
Yeah,
That's
we
impressive.
were entrepreneurs.
Definitely.
And that lasted a couple seasons. That was great. A lot of fun back then. And then going to school and working, I did that for a while, again, back in the service industry. And then I guess, it's hard to remember all of this now. I think I was down in Wilmington going to school, working as a bar back. And I was young. I think I was 19 then. Then I went out to Washington to finish school. worked in restaurants as a server mostly, a little bit of fine dining, a little bit of everything out there. Moved back to Wilmington, was into the service industry again, mostly as a server, opened a wine shop.
When was that? I saw that and I was really curious about that because I know you guys are really big into like just sourcing high quality products. And
Yes.
Yeah. So
everything.
Yeah.
And Dram and Draught, we don't focus on wine, but we both love wine. So we have a small but interesting wine list.
Yeah.
And wine was my first love
It's not
before
about
liquor.
quantity, it's about quality.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And if you come in there and you're not drinking whiskey or a cocktail and you want a glass of wine, you shouldn't expect a library of wine, but you should expect some interesting options, right?
Yeah. Good diversity, quality.
Stored at the
Yeah.
right temperature, served at the right temperature in the right glass. But the wine shop, I think, was 2003. Let's call it, no, 2005. 2005. I was there for a couple of years with a partner. I saw the top of that mountain, and I wanted to climb a bigger mountain. You know, I think
What was
that's
the vision you had?
I was just looking at what we were doing, and the wine business is real tough. The markup is low. You're competing with grocery stores that have an even lower markup and get it at a better price. I was looking at Costco that was selling bottles of wine cheaper than what I was buying them for at wholesale. So it's a tough business, and some people do it really, really well, but it has to be your goal, your life. And I wanted to do something a little different, a little bigger. And again, I think that we did wine tastings every Thursday night at my wine shop, and that was my favorite day because I was behind the bar pouring samples for everybody, playing the role of bartender.
Yeah.
So I think I really wanted to get back to that, and getting out from the wine shop, I sold it to my business partner, and then moved to Raleigh. I was also moving to Raleigh.
So I think when I hear boutique wine shop, I'm thinking like what you're paying for, why you're paying the marked up prices is because you're really paying for the relationship with the person that owns that place who knows their wine. So like and that's why you pay more, because you can't go to the grocery store and have a conversation about wine with a 17-year-old kid stocking the shelf, you know?
That is a good point.
Yeah, but when you go to a boutique store, like that person is usually passionate about the product, and they can educate you. They can say, you got to try this. Like, what's for dinner? Okay, try this bottle. And like, I think that's what you pay for when you go to a boutique store like that. But you're also, from your perspective, you're probably like getting this huge education in wine, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say when I opened that shop, I thought I knew about wine.
Right.
While I had that shop, I learned about wine. I learned a lot real fast.
I bet. Any advice on partnerships that things you learned from partnerships in that first partnership?
Yeah, I think partnership is, sometimes Drew and I joke about it. It's like you get more entrenched than a marriage sometimes. So I think choose your partner well. I think have most things written out and agreed upon ahead of time, because inevitably there's going to be problems. There's going to be disagreements. I think that fortunately for Drew and I, most of our disagreements are healthy disagreements, right? And usually we come to some sort of compromise or decision. But I choose a good partner. Choose someone you can vibe with. Choose somebody that you can be friends with also, right? I think that's important because even after we disagree, we can go out and get a couple cocktails together and water off a duck's back,
Or more than a couple.
Well, a couple things I just want to surface. One, it doesn't sound like you had a shared vision with your previous business partner. You wanted different things.
Yes, that's very, very good.
So I picked up on that. You said something else. Healthy disagreements. What's a healthy disagreement?
There's plenty of small things where we could talk about it and we don't agree on it. And I think oftentimes the conclusion is, well, this is my feedback. I don't feel strongly about it, but this is what I think. Go, do what you think is right.
It's candid.
And if we're talking about something, I'm like, I don't know. This is what I think. It's not what you think, but I don't. It could go either way. We'll do what you think. Let's try that out. And I think that most of the things that we're deciding, unless it's something super pivotal that is, that doesn't give us options after we make that decision, that one might be we might draw that out and beat it up a while. But most of the decisions we can make that decision, and we have the option to pivot afterwards. So I think that's a lot of our decisions. The hard ones, I think, those are drawn out a little bit more, and then we finally come to a conclusion. And that's really more of a compromise. That's not I don't feel that strongly about it, do whatever. That's like, we're going to meet in the middle somewhere here.
Yeah.
There's also pretty good divisions of labor, right? Not of labor, but of areas of expertise. So,
Sure.
So that helps a lot, because then it becomes anything you don't agree on becomes these small little points up here. Because if it's, if you were going into a cocktail bar and both partners feel very strongly about the way a cocktail should be made, I think you'd be in I don't think it would work. So, I don't question Kevin when it comes to presentation of a cocktail, recipe, flavor, anything that has anything to do with the menu. I'm a guest. I come in and go, yeah, I don't like the mezcal in that. And he goes, yeah, we didn't make that for you. That's as far as that goes, and they humor me and let me talk about garnishes sometimes. But no, that's pretty strong. And we both have a lot of shared vision on customer experience, on, hey, this is a neighborhood bar first, therefore we don't do X or Y, even though there's other cocktail bars doing that. So then if it's real estate related, lease related, dealing with this landlord, dealing with this investment document, I don't think Kevin gets he okay, if that's going to work, whatever, so that division of labors also helps a partnership, because I think if we both wanted to do the same thing all the time and also both had very strong feelings about everything, I think that would be hard on any two people.
Right. You definitely want to find a partner who complements you. Divide and conquer.
And conquer.
And having a shared vision.
Yes.
Right? The overarching vision of the neighborhood bar that also has kick-ass cocktails and an amazing whiskey list, that kind of helps guide you.
Yeah. The one other thing I wanted to resurface out of that stack of three was your friends, which you hear so often never go into business with family and friends. I don't agree with that.
Oh, I don't agree with that either. I think it's even when you're behind the bar and you're hiring your staff, bar back servers, you want to work with people that you want to hang out with, right? If you're spending 8 hours behind a bar during a busy shift with people that grind on you personally, it's just going to add to the stress and the pressure. Right. You don't want that. We
became friends, though. The partnership really is first. We had a shared vision. We spent time together talking about this what became Dram and Draught, and we worked all through that and then built these really as a business partnership. So it's not like we were big buddies for 10 years and then did a bar together, because I think that I think that could be problematic. We look at ourselves as business partners who are friends. Not as friends who became business partner. At least I do. We've never actually discussed that, but I would characterize it that way, that we became friends as business partners.
I don't see any tears rolling down Kevin's face.
He's breaking up with me.
No, I think that's fair. That's fair. That's a good point.
Yeah, I think now is a good time to take a break and thank our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that right now, Restaurant Systems Pro is offering a no-strings-attached 60-day trial that will help you improve your systems, increase your profit, and find better work-life balance. All you have to do is click the link below.
We're back, and where we left off, you guys now in the timeline, it's what, 2007? You guys opened your first location 2008 in Raleigh, correct?
No, I think he did. He opened Raleigh Point in 2008.
Raleigh Point. That's
Our
right.
first bar was 2016.
2016, that's right.
We probably met around 2008 or 9 or 10.
How did you guys meet?
I was doing research to open a cocktail bar and thought I certainly could, as most restaurateurs do, right? And so I'm going to the best cocktail bar in town at the time, and sitting in front of the guy that everybody said knows what he's doing and has trained a lot of the bartenders in the area and was the mixologist in town.
What bar who is this?
Yeah. And so I'm sitting in front of him. He's breaking egg whites to make me a whiskey sour, and I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know anything. And then we got talking. I started coming
assuming
in,
this is
going
Kevin.
in. Yes,
Okay.
yes. And that was Kevin Barrett. And he showed me, not on purpose, but showed me how little I knew and how unprepared I was to do anything remotely with the word cocktail in it. And I went back to Raleigh Point, where I was trying to have like a cool cocktail program, and went, let's not even try. Let's go back to, it's just rum and Coke, guys. We were fresh squeezing. I had a juicer on top of the bar. Remember that?
I do.
And I'm
I
trying
remember.
to do all this stuff, and I really was trying to be a cocktail guy, right?
I was around this time. Gary Crunkleton opened his spot in
Yes.
Chapel Hill, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That was 2008. I mean,
It was right around 2008. Yeah.
yeah, I think it was because he's actually up next right after you guys. He's coming in.
Love Gary.
Sure. Yeah, I've
Gary's
heard so many.
Known
great-
Gary
the
since
best.
right around back then.
I'm sure coming to Raleigh, you're probably looking for the other bar geeks.
Yes.
Sure.
Well, and it's funny. I had this conversation not long ago. That back then, there weren't many bar geeks around. Period.
Right.
It was Gary out in Chapel Hill. Shannon Healy at Alley 26 opened right around then, maybe like 2010 or something. But there just weren't many around. And then gradually we started finding each other.
I noticed you didn't say Drew at Raleigh Point.
Well, Raleigh Point was a sports bar. It was a fantastic, is still a fantastic sports bar. But the cocktails there were, hey, they used fresh juice,
Yeah.
so that's
Hey, that's
A
quality.
plus.
I
right?
was trying, but if you don't understand balance and all the other things, then that's kind of, it's
Right.
using fresh juices. Yeah.
Right. Are you familiar with the book? Either of you, America Stumbles Into America Stumbles Into a Bar or something like that, or Drunk? How he stumbled in. I can't remember the subtitle.
who read it?
Who wrote it? I can't remember that either. I had him on the show too.
Oh, I don't know.
There's so many. When you breach 1,000 episodes, it's hard to keep track of everybody's name.
That's amazing volume.
Yeah. Anyway, I have a feeling that Gary probably read it because I know he really geeks out about the history.
Yes, he does. He's like an encyclopedia.
yeah.
He's great.
So I'm definitely going to try to tap into the history of alcohol is amazing when you really dive into it. Going back to like when we were monkeys,
Yeah.
and how we developed
So
like
like
a
Dave Wondrich stuff.
Well, yeah, it's like we developed a taste for like overripe fruit, and we needed to develop this enzyme that is able to break down alcohol because we're not meant to eat it, and that gave us we're like one of 5 species that can consume alcohol, and it's usually primates because of fruit. And then like we started getting drunk off fruit, not literally, but that's how we developed our like taste for it. But it's a fascinating book. His name will come to me eventually, and I'll mention it, but I'm not good on the spot. Anyway, I digress. So on the timeline, you guys, 2008 opened Raleigh Sports Bar.
Yes.
Did I say that right?
Raleigh Point.
Yeah, Raleigh Point
It
Sports
was
Bar.
actually 09.
09.
Yeah.
You moved to town into 2008, and you're
I
working
did. Yes.
here. So you go and are a patron at one of his bars where he's working, and you're like, damn, this dude knows what's going on. So at what point did you guys start talking about maybe like, sharing creating a shared vision? Like, when did that start to happen?
Probably when you came back from Argentina. So
Yeah.
Kevin did I don't know what you actually call that, a
Call it
walkabout?
a sabbatical.
Sabbatical, but he was working. So he went down to Argentina and worked in a bar, and what was it, about 6-7 months?
It's closer to a year. Actually.
Okay.
What year is this?
This is 2012. From I think it was like the beginning of March till almost November. And I wanted to stay. That was the original plan, but money, well, et cetera, et cetera.
He went with a girl and a dog and came back with a dog.
Yeah,
Well, at least you got the dog.
yes, my dog and I had a wonderful, happy, long relationship, and she's off having a great, wonderful life. But yeah, Argentina was great. I actually thought I was getting out of the service industry when I went to Argentina, but instead I went to work at a bar, a quote-unquote American bar in Buenos Aires. And, man, we could do 3 podcasts just on that bar and stories from that bar. It was
Good stories or
a lot of terrible fun. But also, when I was down there, I drew up a business plan for a bar. Because I don't know, like I said, I think I was born a barman. It's just in my blood, and I couldn't get away from it.
so you guys both have your you have a shared vision, but that started as 2 independent visions. and then you guys realized that you had similar visions at some point.
I think in those early days, though, that it probably was two separate visions, but they very quickly merged into one decision. And the best example of that is when we were trying to come up with the name. We're sitting on the patio of a coffee shop, and we were saying words at each other. And, I think we got to Dram or Dram House or the Dram exists somewhere already. We don't want that. We want something else. And then somebody said Dram and Draught. And I don't know if he said it or I said it, but as soon as it was said, I think it was right there.
Clicks.
Like, that's it. That's the right answer. There's no question. Let's stop talking about it. That's the answer.
So you come back from Argentina with a dog. Oh,
yes.
One less in your party.
Yes.
And when did you find out Kevin was back? Did you see him in town? Or like, oh, I thought you were out of here. You're back. Like, how did you guys reconnect?
I showed him my business plan.
Oh, yeah, he reached out and we got together, and the rest is.
So when you showed him the business plan, were you looking for investors or were you just looking for a colleague?
I was looking for feedback at that point in time. It was so early, and it's funny because back then lots of things were happening around Drew's neighborhood, right around Raleigh Point, and his feedback was, he looked over it, he looked at some numbers, he was like, good, whatever, and then his feedback was, this is great, I'll do anything I can to help you, but right now I have to tighten up my shop because of whatever's going on here, but I'll help you, and if this is still around in a year or two or whatever, maybe we'll talk then. Right. And that was great feedback because it was like, I'll do whatever I can to help you, but I'm not the guy right now. And then it was a few years later, we got back together and started talking again seriously about that. Not that we didn't talk in between, but that was more cocktails and fun. Mm-hmm. And then I think, I don't know do you know what the impetus was to get us talking about a bar again? Was there
I don't.
Space available, or there's something that like tipped it over there?
I don't.
Because I kept working on it and talking to other people, and I had some people lined up with all the ammo in the world, but no trigger finger. We kept looking at spots, and they wanted to be involved, but they weren't in the industry. They saw it from afar and thought it was interesting and fun, and we looked at a ton of spots, and between all of them, they had all the money in the world, but they just couldn't dive in. And I was, at some point in time, over ready, right? I had like dealitis. I was like, we'll take that one. We'll take that one. We'll take that one. Yeah. But no one was ready to actually pull the trigger. And then Drew's got a happy trigger finger.
So what changed inside you? How did you go from not in the position, not able to help, to like, I'm
well, I wanted to do it all along. It was just, I think, and Kevin's kind of reminded me of that. I don't remember what was going on.
Bass Pro Shop was coming into your shopping center. It was going to increase the
so I was, and we did. We went up 27% in sales, which we were already
was this at Raleigh
doing
Point?
Well. This is Raleigh Point, yes. So we had a dead shopping center. I was kind of the anchor. And there was it was empty, and then it was Pottery Barn, which doesn't bring in business for a sports bar, and then Bass Pro Shop went into where Pottery Barn went, and that changed it, and that was big. And I said, I need to be in the kitchen, I need to be at the bar, I need to be working and concentrating on training and all that. So we did that, and then that also helped because I was making more money at that point when we increased 27%, and so. I had this bar idea I wanted to do. Well, and it turns out, by the way, like what we do is not so unique. What's unique is we do it well, and we have a great design, and we have a great, our culture is big, consistency. So it's not like, oh, you guys did, something that nobody's done before. It's a whiskey cocktail bar that has some overriding principles that makes it work for us, and we take really good care of I like to think we take very good care of our staff. We don't have high turnover. We took care of them during COVID. I think that helps with the culture. Is like these guys are not going to leave us hanging when everybody was scared. So we really genuinely care about our staff. So I think there's things that make it different. But let's be at the 35,000 foot level, we haven't, changed the industry. It's a bar. So we wanted to do that. We wanted a good bar, and then we started looking for locations. And the way I remember the name thing, Kevin came up with Dram, and then Dram House kind of stuck for a little while. It's actually on some of our early P&Ls. And I was selling so much beer, which it turns out I was wrong, by the way. I was serving so much beer, and beer is profitable, and I had a lot of events around beer and all that I was like, we have to have draft. And, of course, I was like D-R-A-F-T, draft. And Kevin thought about, or you said when you first heard it, well, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but he came back with Dram is an old measurement, right? It's an old word. Let's do the old spelling of draft, D-R-A-U-G-H-T.
Yeah.
And then it stuck. Now, the truth is, what do we sell? About 12% beer at most locations?
Yeah, it's 80% cocktails and liquor.
Yeah.
And,
so I just came from a place that was selling,
But you also
think that's
want to
surprised
have
both of
something
us.
for everybody, because
Absolutely.
you don't want to just like if you go in with a group of 8 people, there might be that one person who doesn't want to have a cocktail. So that one person will pull everybody to a place where everyone's happy, right?
That's right.
So I think it's good to have, I think you guys I don't know to convince you guys of this, but to have that diversity, but to have a focus, but to have something for everyone too.
I agree. And we have 12, 14 taps. Carrie's the only one Carrie and Wilmington.
Carrie and Wilmington
only have
6.
6.
It's funny where you see the 80-20 rule show up sometimes.
Yeah, right.
And it sounds like you guys are
Pareto's
close to that
law.
80-20.
Oh, yeah. If you put wine in with beer, if you said beer and wine, it's 80, it's 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
Yeah. It shows up everywhere. It's crazy once you figure it out. It's, what is it, Pareto's principle or something?
Pareto's law.
Pareto's law, that's what it is. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's also worth, Drew, mentioning that you owned at least 3 restaurants, right? Aside from Dram and Draught, or I know you had the Raleigh Point, Remington Grill. You also had a cigar shop.
Nope.
Where did I see that? I think I saw that on LinkedIn.
We like cigars.
We like cigars.
We could take you to a cigar place.
Oh, I owned a cigar company.
That's what it was.
It wasn't a bar. It was actually a brand.
Branded cigar company.
Bonded cigar.
Bonded
Yeah.
cigar.
And you notice if you look at the label, it looks a lot like a whiskey label.
Oh,
and that's
okay.
on purpose. And went down to the DR. I was doing some charity work down there and met some guys that owned a factory. And I designed a label with a friend of mine, and we were off to the races selling cigars.
What was Hadley's?
Hadley's was Kevin and I's first bar.
Okay.
It's a name that shall not be discussed. No.
Wait, so you guys opened a bar together before?
We were
Dram?
already opening Dram on Hillsborough Street, and this opportunity came up, and it was a great opportunity, and it all worked out. We just ended up, again, the lease got us, and it was not a success. We had it sold. I mean, the guys that bought it turned it into something else. So it is what it is. But
So you guys were collaborating on Dram, and then there's a satellite opportunity that came up that you said, well, let's take a swing at this. You developed a whole new concept while trying to open Dram Draught.
Yes.
That didn't work out.
The reason we did that, I think that was reaching a little bit, right, while we were doing Dram. But the reason we did that is that we were facing so many really bureaucratic delays for Dram. The city was delaying us unnecessarily, I think, in my opinion. And at some point in time, we weren't sure if Dram was going to happen. That's how bad it was. We were postponed indefinitely, possibly canceled. So
was it construction issues, zoning?
It was zoning issues.
Zoning, and we actually had to. It's not really suing the city. It's called the Board of Adjusters, and so you've got an actual judge. It's a judicial proceeding. It's I think they called it quasi-judicial.
Yeah.
And so we have an attorney. The city has their attorney, and you're in front of a judge, and we won. So, but that took what? Tens of thousands of dollars and 6 months or more. I mean, it was, it slowed us up.
At least 6 months, yeah.
Yeah, so
it was brutal. When we were at the judgment and they judged in our favor, I was in my seat and I just kind of melted down.
Can you get into the details of that?
Sure. So the owner of the property, a guy named Jim Zioni, he was our first landlord with the Dram and Draught. Great guy. He's done a bunch of development around this town. He's from Charlotte. And he gave us a lease that he wouldn't give to anybody else. This is the gas station that sat empty for years. And because we gave him the right to kick us out. So this was the little switch that allowed us to go in. We said, well, after 3 years, you can give us $300,000 or whatever, which I thought was going to be much more than construction. Turned out not to be. But and you can kick us out, which is actually what ended up happening. But we got a new location, and anyway, that's all a whole other story.
Location isn't.
No, it's torn down. We're on the same block on the catty corner, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
So the city, our block was designated for 10-story buildings, which then you have to give the city 15 feet for sidewalks. And this was a less than quarter-acre piece of property, and 15 feet around was, I think he had said it was 20% of his property, and they weren't paying him for it. Well, we weren't building a 10-story building. It makes sense. He actually did sell it to people that built a 10-story building. They did give 15 feet to the city, but all we were doing was remodeling, and they should not have. The only thing, we needed one more parking place, so we had to go through city planning.
Yeah.
If we didn't have to go through planning and it was just strictly a remodel, he wouldn't have to give the land. So for one parking place, it kicked this in, and it was ridiculous. Didn't pass the smell test. They shouldn't have held us up. No, and we won.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show that like there's so many things, so many variables that can bury something from ever even getting off the ground. Because like not everybody has $10,000 like additional, like,
and so many unforeseen things that you could not possibly predict going into it. The only thing we can predict now is that something unpredictable is going to happen.
Absolutely.
During that construction phase, absolutely. Something's going to delay you. Something's going to cost you more money, and you have to be ready to roll with the punches. You have to be ready to race to a fire and put it out, and you have to be ready to run into a hurricane.
So whatever you plan on spending for a build out, double it.
Double it.
At least 50%.
And we're blessed. We have several really good investors, one of which has time and time again stepped in and said, "Hey, I'll do this. This will get us there." Just, and so Mark Martek has been a blessing of a investor partner, and we really are blessed. Like a lot of people, investor partners can be their bane of their existence. Our guys are mainly uninvolved and just love getting, because we do dividends. They get paid, which is rare sometimes in restaurants, right? Yeah. Well, and Mark is they just believe in us and have backed us up.
Yeah. How close were you to doubling what you thought it was going to be?
That one, that one was not as bad, the first one, as doubling, even with all the other things. We had a general contractor who's a local home builder, Rex Boss. He builds gorgeous multi-million-dollar homes, and he lent us a super. So we it was pretty much at cost. Everything was at cost. And we hadn't had the pandemic, so we didn't double everything, and subcontractors were still willing to work. And so it didn't. It's the other ones that have. What used to cost $500,000 is $950, and that's real numbers. It's just, it's expensive now,
especially now with the cost of goods going up. So in this journey, like you guys, you finally are able to open. Right, the current location where the OG location. How long were you at the OG location? 3 years.
3 years. Yeah,
3 years.
Almost exactly 3 years.
Like taking us through the journey. Like what were the tipping points? What were the challenges? How did you overcome? Like get specific.
So many.
I know, right? How do you choose?
I'll tell you this though. It didn't take long for me. There was so much pressure. And you're so nervous because you have a business plan, you have an idea of what you're going to do. The business plan's all fiction until you open the doors, right? Once you open the doors, then you can get a feel for it. It didn't take long, I don't think, for either one of us to realize, like, all right, this is good. It's a good product. This is built to last. People like this. We can do this. This is going to that happened in the first 4 weeks, I think. And then those first 6 months were super tough because we were still climbing out of the hole of construction and all the delays, and money was real tight. I think the next 6 months were markedly different. And then once we got to that 1 year mark, things were great. Personally, that first year was the poorest I've been in my adult life.
So what was the tipping point? Like what started to change? Was it just like, did you guys have operating capital did you have a runway?
We had almost none by the time
We had
opened the
we had
first
the
one.
opposite.
Yeah.
We had the opposite. Sign guys calling us. We're like, we'll give you 500 this week.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, they
it
say
was
it
the
takes about
opposite.
a year.
And Kevin was,
And that's about accurate.
to find those, you know, that 20% that makes up 80% of your revenue, right? Those regulars that like call your spot their spot.
Yeah. What I find a lot now that we've done it a few times, and I'd done it for other people before we did Dram and Draught, is you open up, you have a brief honeymoon period. It could be a weekend, it could be a month. You know, 15 years ago it was probably like 3 months in this town, but you have a brief period where you're the hot spot and everyone goes and everything looks great, and then things kind of come back down out of orbit, right? Come
People
back
wanna
down
try
to earth, and then you're spending time building your client base, you're building your guest list.
reputation.
Yes, you're building your regulars, and that takes time anywhere with anything. I think no matter how hot your concept is, it takes time, and it's usually about a year.
Right.
And then that second year, you're really building your business.
So whatever you think the build out's going to be, double it, and then have a year of operating capital thereafter. If you really want to play it safe. But most people, I mean, you guys didn't have that, so it can be done. But like to have that cushion, to have that something to lean on during that first year to year and a half, it's huge.
Yeah, we didn't have that.
Yeah. It can be done. But look at Drew and I. We're both 28 years old. Look at what happened.
Look what happened to us. This was
pressure.
gray. This was not gray. So and Kevin was able to. So he actually worked the bar, and that was part of, I think, the whole tipping point was, you know, you had his reputation. He's actually training the first people. You know, he's creating the culture, the cocktail culture, certainly. And he's at times not taking any money home because he wants the bartenders that are there to take something home. So
Give them a reason to stick around.
yeah, so it was some tough. That first year was a tough year, and then, you know, sales started coming, and, you know, we're doing events, and we're, you know, making, you know, we fought for it the way you have to fight for it. Now we have a reputation, and we open in a town, and it's, you know, there's a little bit more. I'm not saying it's a gimme, but there's people waiting for us, and so it's not that, hey, this is what we are, this is what we do. There's enough articles out there, there's enough collateral out there that people have an idea of, oh, okay, you guys are coming to town. You know, great.
Yeah. You mentioned something briefly, events. That's, I think, huge. I think being, especially in the bar industry, you're almost like an events company at first, you know. Is that true with you guys? Or you guys?
It has been, certainly at Raleigh Point, I was almost like it was 100% events. Now, some of those are planned for you, called Sunday football, you know, college football, Saturdays, you know, this kind of thing, UFC events. So some of it's planned for you, but then you have to say, we're flying in crawfish from, you know, Alabama, and we're going to cook crawfish, and this beer company is going to work with us, and we're going to get this band, and you're creating the event. And so I was very driven into event. You know, at Dram, I would say, and I'll be interested to hear Kevin's thought on this, I would say we're not as an event, like, what's the event today, you know, in order to have business. You know, we don't have to do that. We're going to be busy Saturday without an event, whereas Raleigh Point, even though it's a big sports bar, if you didn't have anything on Saturday, you had your regulars at the bar. It could be very, you know, slow day. So it was very event-driven. We're kind of, the event is our product, is the experience. Right. We like to say we don't sell liquor, we sell an experience, and that experience is ongoing when those doors are open, you know, the whole time the door's open. Now, having said that, we have a person that runs events, and she's very, very good. So I don't want to say we don't do events, because our menu rollouts are events, our openings are events. Kentucky Derby's an event. We have CEOs of liquor. We have one coming next week. We have CEOs of liquor companies that come in, brand ambassadors. So we do these events. We do these book signings. So we do stuff. But I would personally say Dram and Draught is not one of those that has to have an event, you know, every weekend, and has to have events to be busy.
Well,
That's
it sounds
my
like you lean
input.
more on consistency in events. I feel like, or like almost the antithesis, because you're constantly changing. You know, like
right.
it's a new thing every day.
Yes, I think that we do events, not anywhere near like the Raleigh Point schedule, but we do events. And to me, an event is just another way to kind of touch the guest, you know, put it out there on social media. Even if you only have a few people show up, you're just reminding them that we're doing stuff. We're here. When's the last time you were here?
There's an opportunity to make noise and to draw people on something who might share an interest.
And sometimes our events are things that we do before we open for the industry. You know, the book signings that we do, we usually do it an hour or two before we open, offer like a complimentary drink and let people come in and get their book signed, and then it leads into good business, of course, right? But it's just it's being a good member of the community as well.
What does that look like?
Well, I think it's, again, some of those events that we do, and I think being a responsible member of the hospitality community, which has undergone a lot of change over
What's
the last
that
few
look
years. I love yes questions. Well, I think it starts at our place, right? We have to be responsible owners of the brand and good leaders to the people that we work with. And I think that our goal is, now that we've created kind of this, we kind of have an org chart now where there's Drew and I, and there's a handful of people that we work with directly, and then they should work directly with the managers at each location, because we cannot be, as much as Drew is Superman sometimes, he can't be in 7 places at once. And then all of those managers have to be good leaders to all the people that they're working with at each location. And that is just, I think, being consistent and having your values and your vision and being consistent about that. And I think, here's another mantra for our business. It's more communication, clear communication of expectations. That's a big part of it. And then as far as just the community goes, outside of our brand, most of the events that we do have a charity component to them. So, and all of our menus have a drink on there that is tied to some charity. And it's a North Carolina charity, more of a local thing, none of the big national ones that are just kind of like, give your money to this. It's something that impacts the community a little bit more.
Well, that's where I feel like if that's where you're going to find your draw, not that it's a balance of giving back and using these events to draw people in, let's be honest. But why are people going to care about a national event that's not really relevant to them?
Right.
If there's a local community here, people who live here who support that what's the word I'm looking for? Jesus, we were literally just talking about
the charity.
Thank you. People who are affected by that charity, or who have others who are affected by that charity, like, they're going to rally around it. They're going to drive people in because it's relevant to this community.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think it's also just our responsibility to,
right.
Being a part of the community, a member of the community, give back to the community.
Absolutely. And I think you're also doing it by, being good to your staff is another way you're giving back to your community. I mean, they are a part of your community. It sounds like you're training them really well. You're providing opportunity to them, in a growing company, so, like, even just being a good business owner is, in a sense, giving back to the community.
Well, it's certainly give back to the industry, because we get asked, our friends ask us that own bars, well, how are you doing this? What are you doing here? What are you doing? And we do things like you just said, training. Every restaurant, every store shuts down once a week, and there's training for all hands on deck, and it's hours. We've got people going through, bar smarts, going through executive whiskey steward. We have people reading. We have a book club. That's part of this Dave's book. That's going to be our next book. We just did Setting the Table.
Yeah.
So I would say that when we talk to other restaurateurs about how we treat our staff and what we're doing, and we pride ourselves on having as little trash as possible, so we juice a lot. Well, we have a compost company that picks up all of the compost stuff, and then of course we have liquor bottles, but those are recycled. We use mostly keg beer. Well, those are cleaned and reused. We can go through a day and have one trash bag and then a big recycling thing of bottles. So we try to do, and we talk to people about that. We use stainless steel straws. Well, now we're using what? Are they bamboo?
They're agave.
I knew there was something different. So we're trying it. They may be bamboo next week. I don't know. We're going to try. We're going to try and figure out some of the best ways to have as little trash as possible. And we buy from a produce company. Now, we can't lie and say all our produce is local, because we use so much citrus. But we do buy from a small local company that when we get basil and things like that, we're trying to get as close to home as possible.
Yeah, the middleman's from home.
And the middleman's from home. There's nothing we can do. You're not getting North Carolina lemons. You know?
Right.
So,
So one question I have about the charity before we move on to how you've scaled and how you've grown your hierarchy. You said you had menu items that are tied to a charity. Do a percentage of proceeds go to that charity? How do you?
We usually pick like a dollar amount, like a couple dollars for every drink goes to this charity.
So do you do the menu engineering, figure out what it costs to make that drink, and then just tack on another $1?
Yes, and you want to pick a drink that's popular, and you want to obviously pick a drink with a good liquor cost, right? So that we can.
But we don't tack on $1.
No, we don't, exactly.
No, it's real money to us because if it's a $12 cocktail and we're giving $2 out, we're only getting 10.
Yeah, we're just eating
we'll just eat it.
Yeah, we're not marking it up to counter that. It's
Well, that's what I was curious about. Like, how do you go about the menu engineering with that? How do you account for that? Is it so you just do the menu engineering and you're basically taking from your profit?
Yeah. This last menu, this current menu, we are supporting Skate Raleigh, which is a skate park off of Capitol Boulevard, and we're donating. I forget how many dollars. I just did the spreadsheet the other day, but a certain amount of dollars per drink, and we picked the drink that is the number one selling drink on the menu.
So it's a real donation because if we didn't, we would still sell that many drinks.
Right.
It's not like,
When you work in profit, are you accounting for the profit you want to take? Like, does that make sense? So like, say you want to do a 15% margin, right?
Yeah.
Do you reverse engineer it in a way that like, even after making the donation, like,
Oh, no, not thanks. You're giving me a great idea for next menu, but no, we haven't done that. No, we just eat it.
But it just shows your generosity. And, I don't know, like, I'm just curious how you set that up, and I think it just goes to show that when you are eating it, but at the same time, when you do things like that, when you make it about other people, it comes back around. You can't track it.
That's right.
You can't track it, but you know that it's bringing people back.
Yeah, and that's just the business side. I think personally we both do a lot of things outside of the business that, it's we're not doing it for any other reason than it's good thing to do, right thing to do, and we're not gaining any marketing off of it, and we're not gaining any, besides maybe good vibes. I mean, he goes to Haiti all the time and does charity work down there. I have certain groups that I donate to every month personally that, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. No need to say any more. So when we left off in your timeline, you were a year in. You spent, Kevin, you were behind the bar for the first year. You were donating your tips essentially to the staff, barely getting by. And then momentum started to pick up. You started to collect your regulars. So that was 2017, right?
Yep.
We're 5 years later, 6 years later.
God, it seems like a lifetime ago when you talk about Kevin behind the bar at the original Dram. I mean, that does to me. I'm being dead serious. That seems further away to me than college years. It just seems forever ago.
So what has the evolution over the past 6 years been? If you guys have been open for 7 years, the first year was just stay alive. How have you transformed during this time? Like, what were the evolutionary points for you?
So then we had a developer come to us, which is the first time that's ever happened in my history, right? I mean, it's restaurateurs fight for spaces and have to be out there. So we had a gentleman that owned a gas station similar to ours in Greensboro, and his guy, I can't
Marty
remember his
Cotis.
name. Yeah, Marty, but no, I can't remember the guy's name. Ryan came to us and said, Marty would like to take you out, come see this space, blah, blah, blah. And we did. And he's got an 8-acre development, and he's going to do all this grand vision. And we're still on that 8 acres that's open. It's just he's run into problems with the city, whatnot. So we built that location, and that was our first, okay, we're hiring a staff and training. And, it was a great learning experience for us.
And that happened. Ryan came to us months after we had opened, and I think that we both.
Ryan was the developer, right?
Marty Cotis was the developer.
Okay.
Ryan worked for Marty.
Sales.
Got it.
Yeah, and we both had the idea that we would do more than one. And when Ryan came to us, I was like, "This is way too soon. No way.
But it's crazy how when you tap into that success and you find something that works, how success just like compounds, like how like opportunities.
Success breeds success.
Yeah, it really does.
What did you say?
Activities productivity.
Yeah, there we go. But this is another lesson we learned. I thought to myself, this is way too soon. We should slow roll this. But yes, we should do it. And it was supposed to happen. We were going to have 2 in the first year. Of course, the second one didn't open for an additional year because everything takes longer than you think, right? So I think working on things and slowly pushing things forward, don't be intimidated because all of those delays are going to come somewhere, right? It could have been in the beginning. There was a little bit of delay in the beginning. It did, it takes months to negotiate a lease and, agree on everything and then actually sign the lease and then raise the money. All that takes time without the delays. So the lesson for me was, we think this is going to happen in a year, plan on 2 years.
Right. So whatever time or money it is, double it.
Everything that works against you, double it, and cut your sales and your profits in half. Yeah, you just learned the restaurant business.
And it'll take twice as long as you think to make profit.
But even if you don't have to double it, at least you have that cushion. At least you have that security.
Yes, it gives you options.
Right.
Gives you options.
Yep. What did you say? Options.
The general with the most options wins.
That's right. That's
general
right.
Options
coming
beget
full
activity that's our combined mantra.
So you went from 2016 to when was the second location built?
2018.
Opened.
2 years.
Opened, yeah. So it was July 29th, 2016
but
to
somebody
September 7th.
Approached you a year after, so you were right. Like,
no, they approached us months after. And then it took
months after opening.
Yeah, after the original.
We had just opened Raleigh, and they came to us because he had seen it. That oh wow, these guys turned this gas station into this gorgeous bar, and we immediately got, because again, and this is where I think it was so important. Kevin was behind the bar. We immediately got good press coverage. There was articles, there was things, and people were seeing it. So it helped a lot.
We had a great designer. It was designed beautifully. It was very cozy. It was sharp Art Deco style. It was a good spot.
So the timeline is you open in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
You have your second location in 2018.
Yeah.
2019, you closed the first location and reopened someplace else?
Yeah, June of 2019, we had to close Dram Original, we'll call it, in Raleigh.
Yeah.
And prepare to move to Dram Raleigh, which is on the same block, which is where we are now. So we were closed for 4 weeks.
It wasn't long. We were meant not to be closed. It was the idea,
so
but everything takes
logistics.
longer. Did we already say that?
Yeah. So you were planning it so when you're ready to close Original, the Dram Raleigh would have been ready to receive you.
I literally wanted to have like a party and have everybody grab bottles and have bagpipes lead us from one to the other.
So incredibly illegal.
Which is so incredibly illegal.
But would have been a great party.
It would have been a great picture.
It's only illegal if they catch you. So, all right. So what was the reason for closing Dram OG? Was it because that 3 years was up?
It was the redevelopment. And we didn't have to leave after 3 years. We had to leave if they sold it for redevelopment after 3 years. And they did. They satisfied a bunch of stipulations for us. So we walked out. It was heartbreaking, but we walked away from that deal okay, probably better off because Dram Raleigh now is bigger, a little bit nicer,
right,
with a nicer covered
all the
outdoor
things
seating.
You wish you would have done.
And 3 times a week I hear people say, I love Dram, but I miss the original. And I'm like, thanks, man. Thanks. Me too.
So I would like to spend the rest of our time talking about the evolution of Dram and Draught and how you guys went from that 2 locations. I know the pandemic hit. We don't have to talk a lot about that. I'm sure you pivoted a ton. You did a bunch of stuff, but I don't want to waste time talking about something that, let's hope it doesn't. I mean, there's always a chance another pandemic hits, but at least the industry's had a trial run of knowing what we can do. We have a clue now of what happens, what you do when there's a pandemic.
I know what I'm doing if there's another one.
Closing.
Disappearing into the hills of Guatemala. You'll never hear from me again.
I can only imagine. What was it like for you guys? I'm sure you had plans to scale. Were you planning on trying to open more Drams after 2000?
We had just moved the original Dram. Had been open 6 months, and then they shut us down on March 17th, 2020, just as we were getting ready to open our 3rd location in Durham. So Yes, it was a very hard year. 2020, June 2019 to June 2020 was brutal, and then even the whole summer, we managed to get one location open, but Dram Raleigh was closed for over 8 months straight. We did convert the 2 bars that were currently open into grocery stores for the first couple months, and that was just a way to do something and to pay our employees while they were figuring out unemployment, and try to help the neighborhoods too. You know, we were in a couple of both spots I think were little food deserts, so we were selling groceries and toilet paper because we could get toilet paper through our industrial suppliers. Grocery stores couldn't get toilet paper, bleach and hand sanitizer. And you know, I think that was back when we thought that it was going to last for weeks or a couple months. And
well, here's what I'm curious about. What was your mindset in January 2020? Where were you? Like, what was the plan?
Oh, the plan was Dram Raleigh, after the move, was really getting really getting their feet under them, right? I think even in January, maybe it was February, maybe it was beginning of March, I looked at Drew in Raleigh and said, man, we're doing so great here. Just look outside, look at all that outdoor seating in a month or two. It's going to be so much busier. We're doing great. And then we're getting ready to open Durham in March or April or June of that year. And then the rug gets pulled out from under you. And, I mean, it was brutal.
And we lost 2 years. We just pretty much the way we look at it is you just lose 2 years.
Yeah. Were you committed to Durham at this point?
Yeah.
It
was done.
Waiting for the CO. We could have called for a CO. We didn't on purpose because we're like, we call for the CO, rent starts. Well, then I'm in this, and this is where the real estate stuff helps. I'm in this email battle, and I say battle. They were good to us, so I don't want to but believe me, there was pressure. And there was pressure to open before we should have because, well, we're at 30% outside. We're not opening. This is North Carolina. We're 30% outside only. And they're like, but we're seeing, you know, Applebees is packed. That's because they serve food. So they're open. You know, whoever else is open. But bars were 30% outside only, way past everybody else. And so it was this, we can make you get your CO. You know, you can't just drag that out. It's like, well, if you want to make us get our CO, start that process.
And what is a CO?
I'm sorry, certificate of occupancy, which in the lease would have kicked in rent. And so they're kind of like, you're scaring us by not getting it. I'm like, well, I'm scared not getting it. And then it got actually to be a year, and it was like, we need to go ahead and get it, or we could fall under the new rules. And in other words, we might have to go through all the underlying inspections again.
Right.
And to open that up to city power is you don't want to do that. So then they said, okay, but we'll give you extra time. They were really good to us, but it was a tough time. And that developer, we're in a historic building. It's called Chesterfield Building in Durham. They, even after all that, they liked us. You know, they like our operation. I think they like us. I like to think they do. They offered us a spot in Winston in their historic building, which was the Bailey Power Plant, R.J. Reynolds Power Plant there, which is just an absolutely gorgeous Dram and Draught. And so it's the same owner, same developer, same everything. So even through those battles, we maintained kind of a peaceful, hey guys, we're, again, back to what I said about being fair. You know, we've got to be fair to them as well. And I think they saw that. We tried and we did our best. We fought through the pandemic, I think, as well as anybody. And we took care of, Kevin mentioned, you know, the grocery to pay our employees and to help with the food desert. And that was a very scary time for people in the service industry. I mean, you're talking about people that need to pay their rent, you know, whether there's a pandemic or not. They need to put food on the table, whether there's a pandemic or not. And so there was no unemployment. There was no talk of any of that yet. There was just this, I don't know how long would you say that was? 2 months?
Well, the first few weeks especially were brutal.
Yeah. And everybody was scared. And so we paid everybody.
Idea.
We took and figured out what were you making, and then we paid them that. We paid them their tips. We paid them, you know, what they would have made had we been open. And then when they announced, you know, unemployment stuff.
You guys got your PPP and all that stuff.
So we got PPP. We got ERC. We did not get any of the.
We got EIDL.
And of course we owe that back. Recovery. We got no restaurant recovery. We got EIDL, which we're paying back. So that's, you know, but we did get some PPP.
We did get PPP.
But now let me say this. In Durham, okay, because we had no payroll, we had no loss. Although we
nothing.
still have a bank note that we're paying, we still have all this,
Yeah.
all kinds of expenses. We got nothing, zero of anything, and because we were just kept from opening, we weren't shut down.
So 2 years fast forwards. You guys, when did things start to kick back for you? Like, when were you back to like the original vision?
As soon as I want Kevin to answer this. In my mind, it was as soon as they lifted the 30. In other words, when we could fill back up, it was pretty quick.
Yeah,
us.
I think it was pretty quick.
When was that for North Carolina?
It was like last week.
Like
it went forever.
Late 2021.
Yeah,
No.
I think
Was
not
it
late
2
2021, but it
early
was.
2021?
Like May, June or something.
Well, we went to.
I already
it was-
forget, too.
Yeah, it was May, June 2021 when we could have maybe April, May of 2021. We were allowed to have
That's-
people inside 100% capacity
Yeah,
because
that's-
before that we were 50% capacity, and we were operating so.
That's when the
efficiently.
vaccine started coming out. It was that
It
spring.
was right around then.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It was right around then. And I'll tell you, I just that whole period was so hard. That was when we first shut down. We didn't know what was happening. It was the first time that I had to look at my life and think about what it was like without Dram and Draught in it. And that was brutal, but Tim Ferriss writes about it in 4 Hour Workweek, and other people have said it. When you face the worst possible situation and then go forward, it's a lot easier, right?
Because everything's better than the worst.
That's right. And that whole time, after we did the grocery stores for a couple months, then dwindled those down, we still kept talking to our employees. We kept having our weekly meetings. And that was in Raleigh and Greensboro, and they started off virtual. Then they were, in person but 6 feet apart with masks. Then eventually it was, well, you're my pod, right? If you get it, we're all going to get it. We're
And there
spend
was
time
some
together.
of that, right? There was some of that. So-and-so was here, and now everybody's going to have to quarantine. And, it was just a weird time.
Well, we did a good job of not having it spread. People got it, but then we'd
We'd let everybody know.
and then we even had people whose roommate got it, put them in a hotel for a few days to keep them away from the roommates so they wouldn't get it, and then spread it to the rest of the staff. And I think, but the important thing is we kept, with the landlords, we stayed in communication with them. With our staff, we stayed in communication with them. When we reopened both bars, we reopened with the staff that we closed with. We didn't have to start over. They stuck with us.
Wow.
And in Raleigh, it was when we were ready to reopen, I looked at the staff and said, I know everyone's still getting unemployment. You can sit on the couch and play Xbox and keep collecting that check, or we can open on Friday. What do you want to do? And everyone was like, no, we're opening. Let's go.
Well,
We're
I think
ready
that's
to go.
kind of what happens when you're a high quality, high level operator. The people that you're hiring are likely passionate about what they do, right? I'm assuming to be.
They have to be. You
they
wouldn't
won't
make it
hang.
if you don't want to
Yeah.
go through training for 3 hours every week.
They're chomping at the bit.
They're chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
I think they enjoy what they do, and beyond money, because you have to provide money for everyone that works in the organization. Everyone wants to be part of something, right? You don't want to be a nameless, faceless number
Pandemic
52.
was bad for mental health. Like, that's what happens. Like, anybody who was a part of something was overnight not a part of anything.
That's right.
And it's a human need to be a part of something, to grow, to contribute to the tribe.
And we didn't
to have
plan
the
it.
value.
We didn't say, "Oh, we need to have weekly meetings," and now that we can get together for lunch, we need to feed everybody once a week, and because we won't lose anybody, and because this, we just did it naturally. Like these people want to be together. They want to see us. They want to see each other, and we want to. And the other thing is, we always thought we were opening in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I mean, we
that's right.
always
2 more
always thought
2
2
more
weeks from now, because they had dates. Oh, we're going to make. I don't know if everybody remembers
An announcement,
that. It's
yeah.
the CDC is going to have an announcement on the
Or the
1st,
governor's gonna
or the
have an
governor,
announcement.
and it was always 2 weeks from now we'll be open.
It was a scary time and kind of a silly time at the same time. It was weird, confusion, I don't know. I don't want to get too political.
Thanks for helping me relive that trauma.
Yeah, I'm going to need to go to
so
therapy.
I tried to get out of it. So 2 years,
You did.
2 years after, when things get back to normal, were you guys thinking okay, growth? Because you were planning on growth before the pandemic, right?
Right. So we got Durham open, and I think one of
That
the things
opened during the pandemic, or
that
after?
opened in 2021, summer of 2021.
Okay, so just after everything was starting to open.
Yeah, as things were getting back to normal, we got back to 100% capacity inside, and Vaccines were out there. We opened Durham. And I think the big difference is at some point in time during the pandemic, after we each individually and collectively went crazy, we sat down and said, well, look, either the world's going to end or this pandemic is going to end and things are going to go back to normal. We should keep working. We should keep working on our vision of growing and expanding. So Durham, obviously, we had already been working on and talking about because it was almost done by the time we got shut down. Winston, we had talked about already. Charlotte, we had talked about already. The location of Fenton in Cary, North Carolina, we had talked about already. So I don't think any of those leases were signed. Maybe one of those was
Fenton was.
Fenton was signed. Winston and Charlotte we finalized during the pandemic, and Wilmington was the only one that was kind of unplanned but always on the board that popped up, that was unplanned. And while everything stopped for 2 years or slowed down for 2 years, now it looks like we're moving real fast, but we've been working on it for years. It's just coming out of the pipeline real fast because everything got jammed up for a while.
Yeah. So what was the evolution like for you? Because you were working behind the bar for the first year. So how did you move yourself out of the day-to-day to the point where you're working on the business?
It's probably a little bit longer than the first year, but it was as Greensboro was getting close to open, it was necessary. I had to pull myself out of the business, stop working in the business, start working on the business. I had to start training out in Greensboro. We were lucky to start with a great staff out there as well.
Where did that staff come from?
We started with a couple key people, and then I think they really helped. Lance Eisen, who's still with us now, he's our director of operations. He started there and kind of just became the de facto manager before I made him the manager. He's just
stepped into place.
Oh yeah, he did. I mean, he stepped up. He had a reputation out there also, so I think he helped with bringing in good people, and I think that we started with a good staff and that we had that good culture.
Did you bring? Well, I was curious. Did you bring people from the original location there?
No, we weren't ready to do that at that point in time. That's something we do try to do to some degree now. But at that point in time, we weren't ready. I was the person. I brought myself to Greensboro.
You're the culture carrier.
And I spent every day in Greensboro. It's an hour and 15 minutes from here. A lot of driving back and forth, a lot of overnight trips. The week before we opened and week after we opened, I was there overnight. And then the grand opening was outstanding. And I drove out there for their weekly meetings. And we made that a different day than it was in Raleigh. That was a lot. That was easy when there's only 2 and they're only an hour and 15 minutes away. Now that there's 6, about to be 7, and they're all over the state, it's a lot harder.
Yeah. I think now is actually a really good time to take a break to thank our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that right now Restaurant Systems Pro is offering a no strings attached 60-day trial that will help you improve your systems, increase your profit, and find better work-life balance. All you have to do is click the link below.
So what would, as far as operations go, as far as internal evolution, as you get bigger, you need to improve systems, you need to change things. What were the biggest changes you had to endure over the past year and a half from going from 2 locations to almost 6, soon to be 7?
Yes. I think, we keep talking about it and keep trying to anticipate what we need before we need it. And I think a lot of the differences are when we started, we would contract out a lot of things to different companies. Now we're starting to bring those people in that work exclusively for us. I think that social media and events coordination is a big example of that. We had a great company that we worked with for the first few years. But we just got to a point where we needed someone in-house to do that. So we still work with that company, Raleighwood Media. They're awesome. Lisa Jeffries. She helped us get off the ground, but we got to the point where we needed somebody exclusively working on our stuff. So now Edie, who Drew had mentioned earlier, handles that exclusively for us. She's somebody that she works with, and then she contracts out with Raleighwood Media for extra help. So that was one of the big differences, kind of building that quote-unquote office people. We have a office in a WeWork space above Dram Raleigh, and we have people in there every day working on Dram and Draught exclusively. That's a huge difference. It sounds like that nasty bad word, corporate.
I'm sitting here waiting to say it.
But I like to say organized. We're getting more organized.
So Kevin fought that for a while. Mentally, it's a philosophy change, right? Like, we don't do this, that's corporate. We don't do that, that's corporate. But then when you're actually corporate, which we kind of are, you have to say, well, checklists aren't all bad. This can help this person do their job. And so you do get a little bit more corporate in certain areas, and you just have to manage it in a way that it doesn't become corporate to the point where the people are numbers, or your employees are an asset of the corporation. They're their own asset, and we're lucky to work with them. And you got to keep that part of it.
There's a shift happening right now where I think the world of corporate and individual, like mom and pop, are colliding, where the mom and pops are taking that. It's like a hybrid of like, what are the things that make us, like, what is it? Where's the soul? How do we maintain that soul? How do we keep that soul? But how do we bring in structure to allow us to scale? Because you need corporate elements to your business to scale.
Right.
Like, that's the consistency, right? If you have one or two locations, you're the consistency. You're the one in there putting the constant gentle pressure on everyone, saying, no, that's not how we do it. This is how we do it. But when you have 6 locations, 7 locations, you can't be everywhere. And even if you recreated yourselves in others, having like your general managers and your directors of operations, like when you get to 12 locations, it's not going to be enough. So you need those checklists. You need those systems, those processes, those procedures, those recipe cards, and like all these things, to corporate things to ensure consistency.
Yeah, especially, yes, consistency, that's the key. To have that consistency, you need that corporate organization. The bad part of corporations is they take all the great ideas from small businesses and package them in a corporate package and sell it back to us. The good part of them is they are organized, they are consistent, and I appreciate both of those things. I want every damn old-fashioned that goes out from any Dram and Draught to taste the same, whether you're in Charlotte, Wilmington, or Raleigh. And organization just makes all of our lives easier. So yes, we are getting more organized.
And there's an area where success breeds success. Had you told some of the original employees, bartenders, because Kevin brought on some great bartenders, I would say some of the best in the city, and if you told them, this is the way I want the old-fashioned, this is the way we do it, there may still have been a little bit of that, but I really like to do it this way, and I like to experiment, and when you have success to the level that we've had it, we have great bartenders that can buy into it and go, okay, this is the way we do the old-fashioned. Now I'm going to get my chance to iterate this other drink for the next menu, because our menu build is one of the things that makes us, I think, very unique and very successful. And I should really let Kevin, because that's his baby, let him talk about it. But that's their chance to be creative. That's their chance to learn and grow and taste things. I was just in Cary day before yesterday, and one of the bartenders, can I let you try something I'm working on? Sure. And there's, what is the ahi tea? That's not quite right. Whatever the tea is, infuse this. And it was this wonderful cocktail. I'm like, I don't know that you're going to need to change a thing. It's wonderful. And so they're always throughout the year, they're creating and getting to do that. But you don't get to do that with the old fashioned and say, this is the way I make it. It's not.
Why is it important to let your team create things?
Well, that's all the hard part of this, and this is really, Kevin should be answering this. That's part of this whole training and stuff. When we bring in somebody that has a liquor and they want us to understand this liquor, we go, oh, that would really pair well with this, and they get to take all this training and start working on balancing cocktails. And I'm going to let Kevin answer, because I'm really in his. Well, this is his wheelhouse, and I'm the one answering.
What was the question?
Like the significance of letting your team create.
Oh, it's letting them participate, right? It's it's letting them be part of something.
Right.
Your name is on the menu now. You're building.
Cool. So you literally put the name. Like this was
yeah.
designed by our team member.
This person, this location. I think we just do first names, right? First names to, I don't know. Everyone's wants a level of privacy and anonymity right now. I'd put my first, middle, and last name in big letter, with a picture of me on there. Because when you're a bartender and you work at Dram and Draught, you represent Dram and Draught and you represent that brand and you're helping to build that brand, but you're also building your own brand because you're not going to work there forever. Maybe you want to open your own place one day. Maybe you're going to move to another city or another state and work somewhere else. But build your reputation while you're doing it. And when you go for a job, bring a copy of the menu and be like, boom, that's my drink with my name on it.
How do you feel about restaurants who take the creations of their staff and spin it off as their own creations? Have you seen that? I know it can cause issues sometimes where, like, there's a pastry chef or an executive chef that comes up with a dish, and then the owner, or maybe it's a chef de cuisine that comes up with the dish, and the owner would be like, go to a magazine and be like, look at this dish, and like they'll own it like publicly.
Yeah. I think an important part of
feels very corporate.
Not organized, but corporate. No, I think an important part of being a leader is sharing credit with people and giving credit where credit's due. That's how you build a team, and you build a loyal team, and you build a passionate team.
People need to be seen.
Yes, and yeah, everyone wants praise and credit, and I don't know, feels like plagiarism.
Right.
Taking credit for somebody else's work. It doesn't feel right.
I do like to talk about technology. I feel like as we move into the future, technology is not going to be an option. It's a must. You need to start leveraging it in your business for systems and processes, organization. Have you guys implemented technology? Have you started leaning more on technology as you scale?
Yeah, I think we have more platforms, more organizational tools that are part of tech. I don't know. I don't think we're going like hardcore in that direction, but it is part of the organizational.
What is your tech stack?
Say it again.
What is your tech stack?
So our tech stack. So we have a great accounting software. We have a company that does it every week. So we have against our KPIs, all our expenses, our sales, everything, and so that part's very good. We use Toast, so we integrate that with a lot of things, and like being able to take an order at a table doesn't seem that high tech anymore, but that's
right.
That's kind of nice. That was not. I'm old enough to remember when you had to,
no more bottlenecks at the register.
That's right. That's right. So that's some tech with and people can pay their bill at their table, and you don't have to come back again. So there's tech there, and then we use a company that measures bar metrics, that measures every thousandths of an ounce, right?
Yeah.
And those guys are great, and so that I would consider that tech, that we can look every 2 weeks and go, oh, we're 1.6% variance.
It's fabulous tech.
Why is it better to outsource that than do that in house?
Well, it may or may not be as we keep growing. I mean, there may be a time where that needs to be an in-house person. I don't know, but if for operators out there, anybody listening to this, absolutely, if you're selling liquor, and I tell this to people, if you're selling liquor, you need to have it counted as so it has to be somebody outside of the restaurant. It can't be the GM. It can't be the head bartender.
If there is somebody stealing from you, they might be the one pulling
let them count
exactly.
it. So it's got to be somebody outside of it doesn't have to necessarily be outside the organization, but it needs to be off-site. And if you're not counting your liquor and you sell liquor, you really don't have a business.
I mean, if that's where you're making your profit, you got to make sure that it's tight.
Yeah, and it's just too easy to lose track of it if you're not tracking it.
Right.
And if you're going to put it on yourself, which I think at some point in time when we first opened, maybe I envisioned myself doing that, it's just a lot of time and a lot of commitment. And if you miss one, then you throw off the whole system. And for us, we have tons of bottles, so it's hours and hours and hours. I'm glad I never tried to put that on myself. I'm glad we outsourced it from the beginning, because it's done, it's precise. They do it better than me, right? They do it better than me. They have more practice. Yeah, it's their specialty, right? So let them do it and give you the reports.
The accounting software, do you know the name?
Cirrus.
Cirrus? Yeah. Is it just a general ledger? Or does it?
It's a company out of Maryland that Bob Frankus actually owns. How many restaurants does he own in Maryland? 10
is
maybe?
it 30?
Oh, I don't.
Because they have a couple different
many,
brands.
Yes, double-digit restaurants, and they kind of developed this company and the software to be restaurant and bar specific, so they can dial into our numbers better than a general accountant or a general bookkeeper that doesn't understand different line items on our
First time mentioned on the show. Is that Cirrus SIRUS or CIRUS?
CIRRUS.
CIRRUS.
And they're accountants that own restaurants, not restaurant guys
interesting.
trying to be accountants. Yeah, he was an accountant for a restaurant. I forget the exact story, but basically he bought it because the guy was not making money, but Bob could see why he wasn't. He bought the restaurant from the guy and then, made it profitable and then developed all this software around, making it profitable.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we don't probably fully use them. They have a lot of stuff. It's just like everything else. It's
Drill
even like
down
with
real
Bar
deep.
Matrix, they'll do all kinds of other stuff. We pretty much use them for the count.
Got it.
And of course they have other services and things that you can take advantage of. But we've been hanging on. So let me say this. One of the neat things for us coming up, and I mean coming up like right now with Charlotte opening next week, we've been running 2 companies. Building 5 bars in 18 months is a whole company itself. Our district, Lentz, I said district, director of operations, Lentz, he's opening Charlotte right now. He's there today, training staff. How much time has he got to spend with Cirrus or with, Barmetrics or that kind of thing?
Manager in Raleigh, or
I mean, we're hanging onto the tiger's tail, and Kevin and I are in multiple different directions. Plus, we have a liquor company that's got 2 new brands coming out this fall. So we've got our hands full. Yeah. But
so there's one thing that keeps coming up, and I've been sitting on this question, but you put a lot of emphasis on communication as being key to your success. What does the internal communication look like? You have a weekly meeting. Are you following a structure? Is there did you get inspiration from a company that you use for communication?
I think we have a few standing meetings every week that I try never to miss. Every once in a while, I'm a no-show. Every once in a while, I show up and I'm not really there. But I don't know where the inspiration came from. At some point in time, post-pandemic, with multiple locations open, I thought it was very important to have a weekly general manager meeting. So we have all the managers talk to each other. We do have a structure for that. There are standard questions that we ask. We give out all the new information for the week. We go over events. We go over any financial things. And then I thought it was just important to have them all talk to each other and share stories with each other. This happened this weekend. This is how we handled it. Then we can all talk and be like, great. Or we say, good job, but next time the best way to handle it is like this. Or someone else can say, oh, that happened to us once, and this is the best way to handle it. So get all that communication going. We have
KDIs.
What's that? KPIs?
Yeah, KPIs, sorry.
Yeah, we go over all that. We go over their budget for the liquor.
Reviews that have come in.
Yeah, we go over reviews. But we try to keep it to a tight 60 minutes. Used to be easy. Yeah. There's more and more people on that call now. Yeah, so we try to stick to the outline that we have for the meeting and not take up too much time for everybody, right? This is all just people's time. Even when they come in for their weekly training, we're asking people to come in on their days off. So we try to keep it, 3 hours is long. We try to keep it to 3 hours max if something special is going on. So, and I don't know where the inspiration, there probably was some book or some inspiration that triggered that.
It's crucial to communicate, to have some kind of weekly rhythm of, and so I'm a huge fan right now of EOS, which it was first mentioned in the book Traction. I don't know if you guys heard the book Traction, Gino Wickman. No. But they have a Traction series of books, a Traction library. But in that book, they talked about EOS, which stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's basically the framework for energy and communication to flow. That's the foundation that your business is built on. But they talk a big part of that is the reoccurring meetings, the annual meeting, the quarterly meeting, and the weekly meeting, and what's discussed in each one of those meetings, and how you start, with the annual meeting being okay, here's our 10-year plan. How do we get there? Where do we have to be in 5 years to be closer to that 10-year plan? And where do we have to be in 1 year to be closer to our 5-year plan? And then you reverse engineer everything down to quarters. So then
I love that.
Yeah. So now it's you call those the rocks, right? What are your quarterly rocks to get to that 1 year goal? And you essentially, everybody in every different vertical has their own rocks. And then every week you're saying, what are you doing this week to get closer to your quarterly rock? And then similar to what you do, they get everything out, and then they solve the problems collectively. So did you meet your goal? No. Why or why not? You solve the problem, you brainstorm it collectively, but like you're collectively moving together and growing. So it's a framework for communication, but it's also a framework for growth, because the communication is constantly around growth. And you cover KDIs, I call it the scorecard, where you're measuring your growth essentially, like your performance. But what's going through your mind?
I think that's great. I think that's another way to drill down deeper. I think that, and I figured out the inspiration for these weekly meetings, because after that, I do one-on-ones with each manager, and that's throughout the week. A 30-minute phone call, one-on-one with the manager.
How many managers do you have?
Well, 7 now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of time, but it's important. And then, Drew, we have a marketing meeting before the general manager meeting. Drew and Lentz and I have a catch-up call before that. And
Mondays are busy.
Mondays is a lot of phone time. But and beyond that, with the employees, I'm probably about due for it now, every 6 months have a one-on-one with each employee at each location. And this comes from Said Moses. Mm-hmm. So he said that, and
employees only, right?
No, LA, the restaurant chain in LA. Pouring with Heart.
I've had him on the show.
Yes, you have. I listened to part of that.
He's
podcast.
become a dear friend.
He's amazing.
Yeah. But with all of his locations, which is 30-something, 1,000-something, I don't know how many he has, a lot. It's over 30 for sure. He tries to make that much time for all of his employees. And I thought, well, if Said can do it, then I can certainly do it. I don't have a quarter of the
This is the transformation of the industry literally happening before our eyes. And that's what happens when we can get people, like, we can share stories and make an example of people and show people, look, they're doing it. If they can do it, you can do it. And we all get better because of it. And like I really do think we're in this massive transformation as an industry right now. You're seeing it happen, where we're taking care of our people way better than ever before. We're taking into consideration wellness and balance way better than ever before. And now I think we're becoming better business people than ever before. And we're looking at what's going on. We're saying, why can't we give the same security to our employees that any other industry gives to their employees, with health benefits and paid time off and all this stuff? And what's going to have to happen is the consumer is going to have to pay for it, which I think is the hardest part, because we've conditioned this consumer to think that the value of a night out is this, when it really needs to be this, so we can take care of our employees. What are your thoughts on that?
We're on that path. We have a January 1 goal of having both some type of healthcare option. It will not be full health insurance, but there's plans out there. The group, what do they call them? I forget. But we're working on that. And then we're working on the 401k, which we would like to have. And I think we will have. We have that standing by. We kind of put a lot of stuff on pause, like we're not even talking about or working on anything till after Charlotte's Open. But when that happens, we can roll this out pretty quickly and get. I think it's important that anybody that's been with us for a number of years can go, yes, and I have this money I'm building up, for my retirement, because if they start at 25, you know what that can do, right? So it's like, let them see that now instead of turning around at 40 and going, wow, I wish I'd started saving 15 years ago. And so, and of course, healthcare and all is very, very important. So yes, we think by January 1, we have a whole initiative on both those.
Yeah. And the mission statement of Restaurant Unstoppable is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. And we're at that point in the conversation where I'm curious, how do you think we should transform the industry? How do we collectively go into the future better than what we've done in the past?
I don't know if I'm in a position to talk about transferring the whole industry. I think what I can do, and I say we can do, is make sure we're taking care of our people as best as we can, and being an example to others. And that's about all. I'm not personally on a mission to go out and make sure, that somebody else, in Ohio is doing, something better for their folks. It's enough to try and
you're doing that right now, whether you're aware of it or not, because people in Ohio are listening to this and they're getting inspired by your story.
Well, they should read Pouring with Heart. Said does a better job than we do. Yeah, that's a great book. Yeah. So I recommend it to anybody who wants to take care of their folks.
And I should probably look that up. Is it Zed? How do you spell his name again?
Said, C-E-D-D. His father was the famous abstractionist painter Ed Moses, and he wanted to name him after himself, but he didn't want another Ed out there, so he put a C on it. Said.
So we had Sid on. He's episode 881. If you guys want to check out that episode, and
it's a great episode.
Thank you. He was awesome. Before we, did you want to answer that question?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think, beyond taking care of your employees financially and benefits and all of that, which is great, again, it comes down to people want to feel like they're part of something. Again, coming from said, you spend 15 minutes with a one-on-one with an employee, and you can get so much more out of it. I've talked to someone that started as a shy host and spent 15 minutes with them and be like, well, what do you want to do? You want to bartend? All right, we'll do bar smarts, and then tell the manager you want to start training behind the bar, and what's stopping you? And you just talk through it, and here we are 6 months later, they're a badass bartender behind the bar.
So I think this is a good time to pitch another episode I recorded recently with Christine Miles. The name of her book is What Is It Costing You Not to Listen? And the whole idea behind that is, what are you losing as a business owner if you don't open that channel of communication up? And if your employees will tell you exactly what they want, exactly where they want to be, and there's so much opportunity for overlap and to provide to leverage strengths from your employees that you would have never known were there if you didn't take the time to listen.
And if you don't listen, they'll tell you what they think you want to hear, and that will destroy you. You want to hear the truth. You want to hear what they want, not what they think you want to hear.
It's creating that win-win situation with you and the employee, and putting them on tracks that are aligned with what they want. And that is episode 989. It's an amazing book, and I'm trying to get her in the network. So I host Restaurant Unstoppable Network, which is a community of our listeners and our past guests where we kind of do like workshops and stuff together. And we're trying to get her scheduled right now, and she's going to be amazing. But this has been a lot of fun, guys. We're at the end of the interview. We're actually 3 minutes over our time, so I want to respect your time getting you out of here. Before we do say goodbye, I do want to give you an opportunity to call somebody out. I really try to have this be what steers the ship of Restaurant Unstoppable. I don't want to be the one who decides who gets made an example of. I'd rather the industry decide, and success recognizes success. So who do you think right now is somebody who's doing an amazing job, who is somebody that if there were a guest on the show, you'd be like, oh, wow, I want to listen to what that person has to say. I want to hear about their career and what advice they have. Who's that person for you?
We just did said, which he would certainly be at the top of the list.
And we talked about Dave and Dave, right? And their book.
Have you had Jack McGarry on yet?
Jack McGarry. That sounds super
Dead
familiar.
Rabbit.
Rabbit.
I haven't, but
he is great. He's become a very good friend of both Kevin and I, and we see him every time we're up in New York. And now we get to see him in Austin. So if you're in Austin at all, he's opening there right now.
I would love to make that happen.
He is. I can set up a joint text or something. Yeah, he's great. He doesn't speak very good English. It's this Irish thing that he, so you'll have to put it on slow so that you can understand.
That can convert that into American English.
Irish punch in the face next time.
So yeah, that's an agreed shout out, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And Dead Rabbit is my favorite bar in the world currently, and that's not me fanboying. I just love that place, and I've been there so many times over the years, through COVID, after COVID, before COVID. It's a great place to have a pint of Guinness, a fancy cocktail, or
and they were mentioned in the book.
Oh yeah, Jack's in the book a lot.
Hospitality DNA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I just had dinner with a guy that I would love to know more about, so I wish you would interview him so that I could learn about him. Jean Georges.
Jean George, I know that
chef. Yeah, he was. I met him at Katana Kitchen, and Moss is great. I don't know if you've ever had him on. What a great operation that is. And then we went over to Employees Only and had dinner, and he is a very interesting guy. But I didn't really realize how much he owned and how many places around the world until I looked him up later, and I'm like, man, I'd really like to know more about how he got started and what his story is. So there's another name.
Well, Jean George, look, I'm coming after you. Jack McGarry, I'm coming after you too as well. They're both in New York, so that's makes it easy for me.
Souther Teague is in New York.
Oh yeah,
too.
Souther Teague
from Speakeasy. Yeah, that's the other great.
There's so many.
He's
I mean,
another
Philip
podcaster too.
Philip
so.
Duff,
Dale DeGroff.
Dale DeGroff. So we love
I've not had
Dale.
Dale on the show.
He's
Oh.
come down, and that's it. You got to have. He's the king.
Rainbow Room, right?
Yes, and he just came out with a liquor, which we just got. We haven't even tried it yet. Kevin's got one of each, and I've got one of each at my house. I've got to bring Kevin his, and a Amaro and an aperitivo. And they're
This is a
DeGroff.
list.
They're
I love
named
it.
DeGroff, and I think
I think DeGroff was mentioned in the book Drunk too, and that I looked that up. It's Drunk by Edward Slingerland.
he's mentioned in every good book.
Yeah.
He is, yeah.
That's an awesome book. You guys would love that book.
I'm gonna put
telling
it on my
you,
list.
It's like an anthropological approach to alcohol over time, and it's also fascinating because like anybody who's alive today, we see alcohol through the lens of a 21st century individual, and like distilled liquor is only like a 200-year-old invention. When you think about it, it's like that's like in the big picture of alcohol and our relationship with alcohol, like yesterday.
Right.
So like it's when alcohol has such a transformative effect on society. It's crazy, but you guys would love that. It's a great book, and that's an awesome episode. So now is where I say if we're listening to this and we are inspired by you, maybe we want to come join your team. What's the best way to connect?
Well, we have a website, dramanddraught.com, which is if you wanted to join the team, I think there's a link on there
Yes.
for that.
And there is massive growth happening right now. There's opportunity in this organization.
Yes, there is.
There is. And then for me, if I'm at Drew Barman on Twitter, which I know a lot of people aren't active on Twitter. I am because I'm doing some Web3 stuff, and I'm at Drew Barman on Instagram.
Okay.
And then Kevin is silent.
Not available on social
Not
media.
available. Yeah, he is. He's writing
You
it
can
off.
find at Dram and Draught, right, for Instagram. Is that right, Edie?
They're location specific.
Oh, they're location specific. I don't know. Search Dram and Draught on Instagram. You'll find me.
And now is when I say you guys, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me. I know it's a long interview. You guys are great. I can't do what I do without people like you being so generous with your time and knowledge. And there is no questioning. You are unstoppable.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.